What's going on, guys? Rybarmy Teacher in the house, and I am here with my PUL week number 3. The team builder, your Royal Bournemouth Right Bombies are taking on the Pittsburgh RIverhoundooms and Coach Czar in a rather interesting week 3 matchup. Now, Czar's had a bit of a rough start to the season. He's currently 0-2. We're sitting at 1-1 right now, so we're in a little bit of a better spot. Hopefully we can keep our winning momentum going. We had a really good win last week, and that's what I'm looking for again. Now, Czar's got a pretty cool team. He's got a very fast team, but he's got a very frail team. So we're looking at a question of, can my bulk outlast his offense? And that's pretty much going to be how I win this game. So let's talk about how his team after one crucial announcement. Before this week, I made a free agency transaction where I swapped out Salazzle from my team for regular Aerodactyl. Now, regular Aerodactyl gives me an offensive stealth rocker, it gives me another defogger. It generally gives me a bit more than Salazzle did. Salazzle didn't really offer anything to my team that some of my other Pokemon couldn't do. So I decided to drop Salazzle, pick Aerodactyl. If you like that change, or if you're wondering why I'm putting that change, hit the like button down below, throw a comment down that way, and let me know what you think. I'm definitely interested. And before you watch the team I brought, let me know down there as well, if you get some time, what would you have brought to this match? I'm really curious to know. So, let's look at his team. He has a Mega Lopunny, a fast physical wall breaker, super fast, 135 base speed, I believe. He's got the scrappy ability here as well, so it hits ghost types. It's a terror, but my team is probably the worst matchup for it. I have its quintessential counter in Clefable. Slowbro can handle it pretty well. I do have things like a Ferrothorn that, if he doesn't high jump kick turn 1, can actually beat Lopunny 1v1. It's a pretty cool Pokemon. I've considered drafting it before. I haven't actually drafted it yet. I think it may come this week, but if it does, it may need to run like Power Up Punch or Thunder Punch, something like that as its last move. Typically, you normally see Fake Out, High Jump Kick, Return, and then one coverage move. In most standard Mega Lopunny sets, the coverage move is Ice Punch, but obviously this is Draft League, so it's a little bit different. Next on his team is a Skarmory, really physically bulky Pokemon, typically known for its hazard stacking against rocks and spikes. Can also be Whirlwind, phasing me around, gets Roost for recovery, gets the sturdy ability so I can't one-shot it. You could potentially run an offensive Skarmory with like weak armor with Brave Bird and Iron Head. He might choose to bring that, I doubt it. Hazard stack doesn't really work too well against my team, of course, because I have a Mega Sableye. We'll see about Skarmory. I'm not convinced it comes, but if it does, it's probably going to try and get Hazards up against me. Hazards does cripple some of my team a little bit, if I can't defog them away, or if I can't bounce them back, of course. Next on his team is Gengar, pretty quick, decent special breaker, got a very wide move pool, gets Substitute as well to prevent things like Pursuit Trapping. Obviously I've just added an Aerodactyl, which is a really good Pursuit Trapper, so he might choose to bring that. However, it's really frail on the physical side. It is actually outsped by Gengar. It's outsped by Aerodactyl and gets one-shot by Earthquake, because of course it doesn't get Levitate anymore. It can't really switch into a lot of my offensive threats very well. So you may need to pivot in with like a Volt Switch or a U-turn. Speaking of a Volt Switch, his next pick is Galvantula. Typically, you see it occasionally run a web set. It's got 110 speed, so it does get outsped by a lot of my faster Pokemon. It does get Volt Switch for pivoting. Typically, you can either see it as a Sash Lead for webs, or sometimes a spec set. It does get the Compound Eyes ability, which boosts the accuracy of moves, so things like Thunder are more likely to hit. Bug Buzz, of course, is a very strong stab move on it. It doesn't get the biggest amount of coverage, does have a somewhat awkward matchup against my team. It might come, I'm not convinced. Next on his team is a Pokemon I don't expect to come, but I do think it has some potential in this matchup, is Granbull. Granbull's a mediocre fairy-type Pokemon. It hits okay on the physical attack side. It's got Intimidate. It's really slow, though, at 45 base speed. It's actually only 1 point faster than my Dragalge, for example. Oh, however, it's nowhere near as bulky. It does have some utility options. It does get things like Heal Bell. It does also get Thunder Wave, but Thunder Wave doesn't make any sense against my team. His team's already faster than mine, so Thunder Wave really does nothing for him. If he does bring this, he might need to bring Fire Fang because I have a Ferrothorn on my team. Maybe. Don't know. I don't see this coming, personally. If it does come to try and counter my Trick Room, I could definitely see potential for that. But I do have plenty of answers for that on my team, as you'll see when I get to my team. Next on his team is a similar Pokemon to Gramble in a way. It's Rampardos. It's got a monstrously high attack stat hat, of course, and it has a Sheer Force ability. It does get Head Smash, which hits like an absolute truck. There's not really many things that can really switch in on it. However, because of the somewhat slow speed tier, I think Rampardos has a somewhat awkward matchup. Like, Aero one-shots it if I'm a Choice Banded set. Slowbro has a chance to one-shot it with a Scald. I do have options to counter his team. I think even a Surf from my Dragalge does quite a lot of damage to it. And obviously, it is very prone to getting burned. Things like Will-O-Wisp. I do have a Sableye and a Dusclops on my team that can carry Willow. Things like Toxic as well can really start to wear that Rampardos down. So I don't think it comes. If it does come, I expect it to be a Banded Head Smash set. That's pretty much the main set it does run. Could also potentially be Roxy Head Smash. That will be kind of an interesting set if he chooses to try and bring in. Next up on his team is Greninja. Now, this Greninja can only have the Torrent ability, as Protean and Battle Bond are both banned on Greninja, which kind of limits Gren's output. It means it doesn't hit as hard, particularly on its coverage moves. Still can be a rather annoying pivot, can be potentially a Scarf set, maybe specs with things like Water Shuriken to be able to hit my Aerodactyl. It's probably a likely bring for me. I think Greninja has a good matchup against quite a few members of my team. So we'll see about how Greninja. I think it's a possible bring because it beats things like my Volcarona. It can potentially beat my Sableye. Can handle Slowbro pretty well with Dark Pulse if it's a spec set. Obviously things like U-Turn can also hit Slowbro and Sableye pretty hard. So yeah, I think Greninja does come this week. Flygon is a Pokemon I think has the potential to come this week. It's a mediocre Dragon Dance Sweeper with Levitate for ground immunity. That quad weakness to Ice could deter him though. I do have a few Ice coverage moves, things like Ice Beam on Slowbro, Ice Punch on Rhyperior, I believe Aero also gets Ice Fang. Things like HB Ice, I can carry that kind of tech on something if I expect Flygon to come. So he might be a little bit deterred from bringing Flygon. Otherwise, it could come. It does beat certain members of my team. Obviously, now I drop Salazzle. That's one thing that Flygon would have beat. So, I'm hit and miss. Obviously, Clefable really does do a number on Flygon, so that could be a potential deterrent as well. Next on his team, I think, has to come this week is Shaman. Very well-rounded grass type, 100 base stats across the board, as is most of the Pixies. Can run a lot of different sets, things like Scarf sets, Subseed sets, can be like a Life Orb set, could potentially be a Z move as well. Does get a cool signature move in Seed Flare, which has a high chance to lower special defense, so, especially Spadaf walls like my Clefable, doesn't really want to take that. Does get a rather cool tech move in Healing Wish as well. He does have some pretty good sweepers, things like the Flygon, that he may want to keep healthy. So Healing Wish, of course, knocks out Shaman, but it does fully heal whoever switches in afterwards. So it could be a pretty cool tech if he chooses to bring it. Maybe, maybe not. Espeon, I think, is a hard matchup for him this week, but I think it has some merit. Typically fast, but really frail Psychic-type Pokemon. Does also get Magic Bounce like Sableye. Typically you see Espeon running a spec set with things like Psychic, Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam for Dark types, and a cool move Trick, so he can swap the specs onto one of my defensive Pokemon, or a physical attacker that doesn't really have anything to use it with. can potentially run that. Last but by no means least is his Cryogonal. Really good special wall, somewhat okay speed too, actually, about 100 base speed. Gets a lot of hazard removal, gets both Rapid Spin and Defog. Does also get the attack move for Freeze Dry for Slowbro, gets Toxic to wear down a lot of my defensive Pokemon. It is weak to physical attacks, especially rock type moves. I do have a Rhyperior and an Aerodactyl, so it might come, but I feel like it's more there as a utility option than anything else. So, hazards and removal on his team. I talk about this every week because this is obviously incredibly important. He has 2 Stealth Rockers in the form of Skarmory and Rampardos. He has 2 Spikers in the form of Skarmory and Greninja. He has a Toxic Spiker in Greninja. He has a Sticky Web Setter in Galvantula. He has 4 forms of hazard removal, including 3 Defoggers, Skarmory, Flygon, and Cryogonal, and 1 Rapid Spinner in Cryogonal. So, looking at his team, there's 1 Pokemon on my team that is invariably gonna come, and that's Clefable. Of course, you probably could guess that by the stats on my screen. Clefable, really bulky. We're actually running an unusual EV spread this week. A lot of it comes down to one crucial statistic. If Skarmory does come, the 84 speed investment will mean that if he's a standard hazard stack Skarmory, with the 84 speed investment, I actually outspeed Skarmory by 1 point, and having Flamethrower on there actually 2 shots the Skarmory. So if Skarmory thinks it's got a safe switch in, I could just click Flamethrower and then force out the Skarmory. So that's another way I can deter entry hazards from coming in. Moonblast, of course, for stab. It also potentially one-shots the Mega Lopunny after Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock, of course, there, and Wish support for the rest of my team. Otherwise, it's fairly standard. It does live hits quite consistently. It's there just to be a bulky pivot and be really annoying. I really like Clefable, as you can probably tell by now. Clefable has been putting in a good bit of work. It did a lot of work last week, so we're going to see how well it does this week. We are running Magic Guard this week in case I can't keep hazards off my side of the field. This may change to Unaware. I haven't fully decided on that yet. I have to decide on the likelihood of whether Skarmory comes or not, just to make sure that I do have one or the other. Next on my team is going to be Mirror, of course, the Sableye. Obviously, Clefable's partner in crime has to come. We're running more of a utility style set this week with Fake Out, Knockoff, Recover, and Will-O-Wisp. Last week, of course, I had to run Toxic because it had Charizard. But one notable absentee on Zar's team is he doesn't actually have a fire type, so he has no immunities to Will-O-Wisp. Of course, Will-O-Wisp is there to cripple the Mega Lopunny. It can be there to cripple the Granbull, the Rampardos, the Flygon. Could potentially also cripple the Greninja if he's running a physical Greninja set. Very unusual set to come, but he might choose to bring it. Obviously, as I said earlier, I expected to bring a spec set, which is why I'm actually running a specially defensive Sableye. Specially defensive Sableye does actually take 2 Dark Pulses from a Specs Gren, so pretty nice set. Of course, Fake Out, of course, for turn 1. I expect him to lead Mega Lopunny, because Mega Lopunny, of course, outspeeds Mega Sableye. That Fake Out will come off. I do have a Pokemon that I actually plan on switching into that, which I'll go into later on the draft. We're running Min Speed this week with a Sassy Nature. This allows me to live more hits. It also allows me to hit a few knockoffs under Trick Room if I so need to take items off my opponent's team, just to weaken and wear things down a little bit more. Recover, of course, for longevity. Next on my team is going to be making their debut this week. It's going to be Jalapeno the Volcarona. Running a Life Orb set this week. Pretty standard Life Orb Quiver Dance. I potentially considered running Z-Move on this thing, but I think Life Orb does the job. So Quiver Dance, Fiery Dance, Giga Drain, and Psychic. Fiery Dance, of course, is a 50% chance to buff my special attack, so that's pretty strong. I think after a Quiver Dance, I outspeed his entire team. I do need to quickly check that real quick. I'm just going to have a look at my calc. I'm pretty sure after one Quiver Dance, I outspeed his whole team. Just going to check, because I don't want to give you guys wrong information. looks like I do. So that's pretty good news. So 1 Quiver Dance does mean I outspeed his entire team. Fiery Dance, Giga Drain, Psychic hits nearly all of his team. Psychic, of course, is there for Gengar. Giga Drain mostly there for Gran. If I can get a Quiver Dance off before the Gran switches in, I outspeed unless it's Scarf. So that's quite good to know. Fiery Dance, of course, for Skarmory, and also for Galvantula. So this thing is more of a late game cleanup. If I can get this thing in with rocks off the field, I can definitely put in work. I'm really excited for Volcarona. I've not used it in a draft before. I've obviously only really used it on ladder. It's been terrifying on ladder. So I'm really hopeful I can make good use of this week. Next up, making a debut straight off the free agency, straight into my team, is going to be Pteranodon, the Aerodactyl, running a Choice Band set. I took a bit of a gamble this week by running Choice Band instead of Choice Scarf. I do think Scarf Gran is a possibility, but even if he is Scarf Gran, if I can get Pokemon in the right conditions, I should have no problem dealing with it. It might seem a little bit weird that I'm running Defog on it. This is, of course, because Aero is my fastest Pokemon, so having Defog on it makes a little bit of sense. It just means that I can get rocks off the field. Obviously, rocks are super important to get rid of for both Aero and for Volcarona. Earthquake hits a lot of his team except for Flygon. Stone Edge hits just about everything. And Aerial Ace is there mostly to punish things like the Shaman. Obviously, I do not expect Shaman to switch in on an Aero. I may change Aerial Ace to Fire Fang. I'm kind of unsold on one of the two. They both do very similar damages to Skarmory, funnily enough. So, I think Aero has the potential to be a fantastic wall breaker in this team, so I'm really hopeful that I can make good use of it. This may change, of course, to Rhyperior if I don't feel like I can get enough damage out of my Aero. But I think Aero is the right choice for this week in this particular matchup. Next up is the third debutant from my team this week. We're actually bringing Mercury, the Dragalge, this week. This is a min speed, max special attack, max HP, quiet nature set with Dragonium Z. Z-Draco hits everything on his team immensely hard except Gramble, who's immune to it, which Gramble dies to a Sludge Wave. So this thing is designed to just come in and nuke things. It's pretty much a tactical nuke. The only thing this thing doesn't really get is recovery. It's a little bit unfortunate. Because I'm running Draconium Z, I can't run Black Sludge, of course. But this thing just hits so hard. It's really specially bulky as well, so I don't even need to invest in special defense. I believe it's got 130 base special defense, and that's completely uninvested. So this thing is primarily designed to come in mid to late game and just finish games off. After a Z Draco plus a Draco, I kill even Cryogonal, so Hidden Power Fire there is kind of there for Cryogonal. It's also a little tech move for Skarmory, of course, just in case Skarmory does decide to come. And last but by no means least is my Trick Room Setter-in-Chief, of course. It's going to be Dopey the Slowbro. Packing a fairly similar set to last week, the only difference being I'm running Rocky Helmet this week. The reason for running Rocky Helmet is because my plan is to turn 1 lead with Mega Sableye. Potentially bait out the Lopunny to go for a fake out. If the Lopunny is in turn 1, I do expect it to Mega Evolve and click fake out. By switching into Slowbro, the fake out will not do too much to Slowbro while doing a decent chunk of damage to the Lopunny. If he does pack Thunder Punch, this strat may not work too well, but I do, however, of course, have Clefable, who can one-shot Lopunny from that range, and Lopunny cannot kill Clefable at all, unless it runs Power-Up Punch. I believe it needs to get +2 for a return to kill. So, this thing is basically to come in, maybe do a little bit of damage, set Trick Room out, and then potentially switch into things like my Dragalge. Dragalge, of course, being my Trick Room sweeper of choice this week. Ice Beam, of course, for Shaman, as I expect Shaman to be the most common switch-in to this thing. Psychic there for Gengar, of course, and Skull just for general stab. If I can get some burns on some things, that would be pretty nice. So, yeah. that's going to be my team for this week. Dopey was trying to hide. You see that? But yeah, that's going to be my team for this week. Zara and I had a little bit of banter in the Discord. He's actually saying he's never actually lost to a guy that records YouTube videos before, so I'm hoping to put an end to that run. Alright guys, I'm going to get on out of here. My name's Rabombi Teacher, I'm your coach of the Royal Bournemouth Red Bombies, and I'm going to see you guys in the battle. Later.